we are going to move. We're going to move over to item.
Madam Mayor.
Yes,
point of
sir.
order. Do you not call us into regular session?
Oh, it is. Yes, sorry. It is 7:03 p.m. We are back in regular session. And I will note that on both sides here. Okay, so we do have a guest that I would like to, where is it?
Hey,
Oh, there we go. We have a presentation by Alderman Crickmer and Alderman Rapino regarding the Texas Municipal Retirement System. I think they actually have a guest on the call with us. And do you?
Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Davidson from TMRS, Texas Municipal Retirement System.
yes, and I left you each a cheat sheet here, so to refresh your memories of what we were talking about, the meeting before. If Mr. Davidson would.
Well, before we do that, let me kind of preface this with, we had brought this before council previously. And at that time, it was our understanding that it's an all or nothing, meaning every employee participates or none participate. There is no, that's the way it is. So in interest, in deference to our employees, we felt it prudent to ask them if it was something that they wanted. And it was a resounding yes. So here we are bringing this back, and we do have a representative from Texas Municipal Retirement System on the line with us. So Mr. Davidson, welcome, and go ahead.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate being here. So yes, I'm Colin Davidson. I am a city services manager with TMRS, and I hope that any questions you have, you'll bring my way. That's my main goal for this evening, is just to make sure that you have, all the information you need to make a decision about potentially joining TMRS. Just a little background information before I turn it over to the council members for any questions or even comments they have. I know they may have some information they wanted to present. TMRS has been we were founded in 1947. We have 897 cities that have chosen to participate in TMRS. It is a voluntary participation, so the same decision that Sandy Oaks is considering is one that 897 cities beforehand have done the same. You did mention that it is something that when a city joins TMRS, all eligible employees do automatically become members of the system. Our threshold for membership is 1,000 hours. So if someone works in a position that normally requires 1,000 hours in a calendar year, then that would be somebody that would be enrolled in TMRS. So there are still cities that have part-time or let's say temporary seasonal employees that aren't eligible for TMRS, but all of those employees that meet that threshold of 1,000 hours are going to be automatically enrolled in TMRS. Those employees that do become part of TMRS, they're going to also fund the retirement system. So really the way it works is it comes from both directions. A employee is going to pay in a portion of their salary on a pre-tax basis into TMRS. And then that account that they have is also going to earn an interest credit from TMRS every year. Those employees, the amount they put in is set by the city. So it's not an individual choice that an employee can make. The council could decide to have employees put in either 5%, 6%, or 7% of their compensation. That amount then goes into an account that they have with TMRS. That account also earns interest every year. And so the amount of interest by law is set at 5%. So an employee is going to be putting in a portion of their paycheck, and then they're going to earn interest throughout their time with the city on that account balance. One thing I did want to mention to be clear is that while an employee is working for the city, they do not have any access to the money in the account. So unlike some retirement plans, there's no way to borrow against it or take a loan from it. When the plan was originally set up in the 1940s, it was set up as a true retirement account. So unless someone becomes eligible to retire, or if they end up leaving the city beforehand, as long as they leave employment, they would have access to the money in the account. But there's a few things I want to mention as well, but just to kind of keep that in mind, because that is something that comes up from time to time. So that's really where the employee portion comes in, both the amount they contribute, which is dictated by the city, and then they earn interest on that amount. Where the city comes in is each city in TMRS chooses to match that employee's balance at retirement at either 100%, 150%, or at 200%. And to be clear what that means, it just means both the amount that they put in plus the interest that they've accrued on that balance. Whatever that balance is when an employee retires, that's the amount the city is going to match at either 100%, 150%, or 200%. It's kind of maybe in either, if you've looked at any literature we have, or if you've ever heard of it before, a lot of people refer to it kind of in a 1-to-1 or a 1.5-to-1 or a 2-to-1 match. That's kind of the idea behind it. And to be very clear, I kind of mentioned that that's something that happens when an employee retires. I want to make it clear that while an employee is not eligible to receive that match until they retire the account, it is something that is funded and paid for throughout their entire career. The way TMRS is funded is that by the time someone retires, all of the money needed to pay their retirement benefit has already been paid into the system. So it is, TMRS funds the benefits, what's known as a cash balance plan. So the amount someone receives when they retire is truly based on the money that is in the account when they retire. And just kind of to contrast that, if anybody's ever had any experience with other public pension systems like TMRS, most other public retirement systems have kind of a formula that they use to calculate the benefits as opposed to the dollars in the account. So I'll just use an example, the teacher retirement system of Texas. So one of the largest systems in the entire country. The way that they calculate benefits is they look at it in a teacher's highest 3 or 5 years of salary. They look at how many years of service they have. They multiply those by a factor and it spits out a number. And that's the amount that a teacher in Texas would receive as a benefit when they retire. The reason that's different than TMRS is, as I mentioned, TMRS, the amount that an employee receives, we basically take all of the money they accrued throughout their career, add that matching funds from the city, and then we annuitize that and basically spread a monthly payment out guaranteed for their lifetime. So this kind of prevents some of the spiking or weird things you see in other pension systems where somebody could come in and make a bunch of money at the end of their career and kind of change up the calculation. So I do like to mention that to make sure it's clear kind of how the benefits are calculated. To qualify for benefits, an employee would have to have 20 years of service. At any age, they could retire the account. Or there's a second way, and that could be 5 years of service and they're at least 60 years old. So if you have an employee that has at least 5 years, they could qualify for benefits and at age 60, retire the account. Or if they're under the age of 60, but they have at least 20 years of service, they could then begin starting payments immediately and start drawing that lifetime check. I did want to mention, to be clear about that as well, sometimes people are concerned with the idea of how many years of service that would require. With those years of service, any other city that participates in TMRS, that time could also count. So for example, if you had an employee, let's say that worked 10 years with the city of San Antonio, and then they came to work for Sandy Oaks for 10 years, those combined 20 years of service would make that employee eligible to retire. Now within TMRS, all of the person's money, their account, the city's responsibility is going to be separated. So to be clear in that example I just used, that employee would not have they would have 10 years of service matched by San Antonio and 10 years of service matched by Sandy Oaks. So each individual city, the amount they pay, the amount their benefits, it's all separated. So nobody's carrying the liabilities or assets for anybody else within the plan. The cost is determined, as I'm kind of alluding to there, individually each year by our actuaries. They will look at each individual city. They'll look at your number of employees, your salary, the age of those employees. They look at all kinds of different factors, and then they determine what's the amount that needs to be paid that year to make sure that we are adequately funding that plan and nobody is falling behind. So I feel like that's a lot of information just to kind of throw at everybody. I don't know everybody's understanding and level of TMRS. So I'll take a step back now and be ready to answer any questions, but I'll also be happy to listen to the aldermen and council members have any, if they want to add any additional information about their experience with TMRS.
Okay, I did have a question for you. When
Sure.
you talked about the interest that is accrued on this, is that interest on both the employee and the city contributions?
That is a fantastic question. So first, what you said is that it is actually just on the employee account. So the same way that the employees have an account where they contribute and they're going to earn a guaranteed 5% interest credit. That's only on their contributions. But what I failed to mention, and I'm glad you brought up, is that every month when the city pays in their contributions to cover those future retirement benefits, the city is also going to have an account with TMRS. And the difference is, while the employees are guaranteed a 5% interest credit, the cities are going to actually, we expect to earn 6.75% on our portfolio year over year. That's our interest return assumption. And so whatever we return for the year, so for example, last year, we earned over 7.5%. If we earn any more than that, in the year before, I believe it was 13%. So cities are going to fluctuate the amount of interest that's credited to their account for a few reasons. But the city has an account that earns interest, the member has an account, and the only money the member received interest on is the amount that they've contributed plus their previous balance. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the city matches this at the end of retirement? The city matches what the employee has in his account? Is that how that works?
No, so I'm assuming it's
Or they
each
match
deduction, the
monthly?
city is matching for each deduction.
It's essentially that. So what would happen is the bottom line, so it's kind of on you're talking the good things, you're kind of comparing it on both sides. From the employee side, they'll see the match at the end. So if they've accumulated, let's say you match at 100% and somebody retires with an account balance of $100,000. The amount that they would receive from the city's account would be $100,000 to match that exact amount. But from a city perspective, the way you guys are paying for it and the way you're funding it, that amount's going to be paid from the day an employee starts or the day that city joins TMRS. You're going to be paying a little bit every month to make sure after those 20 years that in that example, the $100,000 is set aside. So it's kind of from an employee side, it's one thing. From the city side, you're funding it the whole time though.
So it's an escrow for the city to cover the retirement benefits to the employee.
Yeah, you could look at it like that. And the good thing to remember too is that when you are this account the city has, you have to remember as well that anytime an employee doesn't meet that qualification for benefits. So let's say you had an employee that started and I told you had to work 20 years to qualify for benefits. So let's say you have an employee that works 3 years and then they leave. Well, all of the funds you've set aside for that employee now are never going to be paid out. So those essentially would stay in the city's account and become an additional asset that could be used to, no liabilities associated with those. So that would just be something that keeps down the cost over time.
Understood.
Is this a tax deferred program?
Yes, sir. It is. It is all of the contributions that the employees make. Back in 1984, that actually law changed. So we have
pre-tax.
tax exempt status. So everything from 1984 on, any contributions made to TMRS on the employee side are done on a tax deferred basis. So when employees start receiving benefits from TMRS, they do have to pay federal income tax at that time. But luckily, the benefits paid out are not subject to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, any of the FICA taxes.
Okay.
What happens if the city withdraws from the program? And what happens to the funds that,
The employee and the city funds.
yes,
So to make sure I'm clear, it'd be, let's say that Sandy Oaks joins the plan and then in 5 years decides to get out of TMRS.
yes,
So in that scenario, what happens is when a city joins TMRS, they're basically making for lack of a better word, they're basically making an agreement to fund the retirement benefit for all of the employees when you join the system.
Mhm.
So let's say 5 years from now, the city decides, hey, we're going to leave the plan. At that point, what you could do is you could stop enrolling new employees, but you still have that agreement in place to fund the retirement for all of your current employees. So essentially, there would still be a cost to continue to fund those employees, but you would not be adding any new employees at that time. Now, to your central question, at the end of that time period, let's say that all of the employees that are on the books have all left, they've all retired or gone. If there are any assets remaining, those would be paid back to the city.
okay.
So ultimately, that would be paid out. If there's no liabilities left, we will absolutely pay that out to the city.
Thank you.
Sure.
It's a shame us volunteers can't participate in this.
Yeah.
5% of zero, man.
It's still nothing. So I do have a question. We have 2 employees that are actually in the room with us. Who was that? Oh. So I'd like to ask Chief Lopez. I think you have experience with this, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you still have an account or that was,
No, I used to, but it's a great,
it's a good
Yes,
thing. Do you have from the percentages that are being offered, 5, 6, or 7, do you have a preference on what you would want to participate in?
I think 5% was reasonable, but everybody's different. So.
And I think you can change that rate. That'd be a question there.
That is a good question. So, Mr. Davidson, if employees, let's say that we started at a 5% contribution with the employees, can that contribution be changed over time?
Absolutely. So the employee deposit rate, you could start at 5%, year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you can increase it 6% or to 7%. It would just take action by council. So it's as simple as an ordinance being passed. I will tell you that increasing the employee deposit rate, the amount the employees pay in, it's as simple as that. If the city ever went in the other direction, let's say that you started at 7% and you decided to reduce it to 6%, that takes a vote by your employees first. So we actually have to have a public vote and 2/3 have to agree to reduce it, but to increase benefits, you do not have to do that. And just to be crystal clear, it's kind of a weird provision that only applies to the amount the employees put in since it affects their paycheck. That's the only one an employee would ever have to vote on. So if you ever made an adjustment to the amount you matched or any other provisions, none of that takes a vote. There's one thing in TMRS that takes a vote, and that's reducing the amount the employees pay in. So it's probably more confusing than it's worth. That isn't even on the agenda, but I just kind of like to provide more information than needed sometimes. So just so you know that that's the case, but you can make adjustments at any time in the future.
Okay, so it's not an annual enrollment type approach. It could be at any point in time.
That's exactly right. And that's usually, I would say, a lot of cities that are looking to join TMRS do something like that kind of an approach over time where they'll start out, let's say, at a 5% and either a 1-to-1 or a 2, whatever you guys think is appropriate for Sandy Oaks. And then you can always make adjustments over time. But it is something a lot of times, especially with budgets and otherwise, that people like to work themselves into.
Right. Okay, well, that's good information. Anyone else have any more questions? No? Okay, well, Mr. Davidson, thank you so much for joining us. We'll bring this back at a future meeting with hopefully some specifics in an ordinance.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it, everyone. And if you have any questions, Tom, anybody else, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to provide any information we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Okay, since Chief Lopez is here, let's move on to item 11, Police Department. Updates and announcements from Chief Lopez with possible discussion and or action. And give me a minute to find my notes here. Okay. Okay, sir, you're up.
Updates, none.
No updates, okay. Sorry, that was 11A.
Get the air conditioner fixed
Here?
on the vehicle.
Yes, the air conditioner's fixed.
You should update it, sir, so we know we have half the officers. Right?
If that's all it took to make them happy.
So it takes, keep me happy, the air conditioner.
Okay, 11B, presentation of monthly report by Chief Lopez with possible discussion and or action. And go ahead, sir.
Good evening, council. For the month of August, our activity report, as you can see, for court defendants, we had a total of 86 for the month of August. And then we had 152 cases. Now switching down to traffic stops. So as you can see, we've increased that amount greatly to 200 traffic stops. With 195 citations being issued and along with 103 warnings given as well. Also for calls for service for the month of August, we had 10 arrests for various traffic others, but I'll get that to later. 10 arrests, we had 10 calls for service for 911 hangups, and then we had 2 possession of drug paraphernalias. For that, I believe no more than probably 1 or 2 ounces associated with that. If we drop down to calls for service for civil matters, we had 6 civil matters calls for service, 3 disturbances, and then we had also EMS assist was very busy for us as well. As I'm not sure if everybody knows, we do go to EMS calls for service, fire calls and things like that. So we had 12 calls for service there. And then we had 4 information reports. And then we had 1 property damage. And then 4 thefts.
No. One suspicious person.
1
not
suspicious
property.
person. My apologies.
Oh my
And
God.
then we had
be nice.
4 thefts, and then dropping down to 7 calls for service for welfare concerns. And then we had 1 assist other agency call, and then 3 calls for harassment and 2 assaults. And then we also had for abandoned vehicles, 1. And then another hot topic is we had about 9 citations issued for commercial vehicle ordinance that has been problematic within the city. So 9 citations have been issued for a commercial vehicle. And then we had 1 mobile trailer citation as well. And then we had 1 recovered stolen. And then we also have a DOA as well, the second page. And then we also had a 1 call for service for animal cruelty. And then 1 missing person, 3 towed vehicles at the same time, 1 fire structure grass, and then 1 criminal trespass issued, and then alarm residence building call for service. So quite busy. If you add up all the calls for service, month of August was quite busy for us. And then if you switch over to the arrests, we had 10 arrests, I believe, 4 SAPD warrants, 4 county warrants, and then we had an unauthorized use of a motor vehicle and a criminal mischief report taken. Also, if you see by the suspect's name, you'll see an R and then you see an NR. We had 5 residents within the community arrested and 5 non-residents arrested in the community.
Thank you. And I know you and I spoke about that. I thought it might be helpful to identify the arrest if they were residents here or not. So I do
So
appreciate
we
that.
have to import criminals.
We have to what?
Import.
We import them, yes.
Information on the 9
Let's take
commercial
that.
vehicles with these moving violations.
Okay, for the commercial vehicle, so we have an individual that continues to park their dump truck within the city. They've been advised, they've been to court already. They've been advised that every day you can receive a citation for that violation. And they've continued to violate that ordinance, and they, receive every day is a
It's a
citation.
separate one, yeah.
You know.
And there have been complaints lodged by,
Citizens.
Yes,
yes.
yes.
You're gonna get a boot.
So,
Um,
Could it
Can,
be towed?
no,
No. So we can take him to court, fine him the max every day.
Yeah.
Does that not require a CDL to drive? So those go against the CDL?
yes. What happens is if the tickets are not being paid, it gets submitted to DMV. And that individual's driver's license can be suspended until those fines have been paid.
Are you winning or losing on this one?
Is this a continual? Is he,
it's gone now. I
It's
didn't,
gone
I haven't
now.
seen it.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
So it only took 9 citations.
No, how many did he get the first time? Because he's already been to court once.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
I don't recall, but yeah, this is round 2.
Well, let's see.
I find it, I like the
Oh, yeah, they would be
cumulative,
right there.
I like the cumulative totals here. There's been a total of 50 arrests in the first 8 months of this calendar year. That's significant. I know that you had abandoned vehicles towed. Do you or can you speak to the situation? You don't need to provide any locations, but I understand we have a recurring problem with stolen vehicles being hidden
Mhm.
around town.
Mhm.
Do you know how many vehicles that has been so far?
On this particular, it just varies. Sometimes it's a hit or miss. Sometimes they could be on a traffic stop.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, I'm talking specifically about those that are being hidden out on a property, not in the city. adjoining the city?
That was just on, if it's the one that you're talking about, is it towards the end of Waterwood
Yes.
Pass? I think it was not, it's either one or two.
Okay.
Of that area.
Of the stolen vehicles, have they been stolen from within Sandy Oaks or they were found in Sandy Oaks and came from somewhere else?
Yeah, they were located.
Are they stripped and dumped?
Not entirely. I mean, they're just, stealing them, and I mean, they're not being stripped. This last one that was located wasn't, it was just dumped. So,
Maybe when we get V-Link, they'll have a different way instead of stealing the vehicle to get on.
There you
Probably
go.
not.
Back on item A. Did we have anything about National Night Out? Because we will not be talking about this again. Think about it. We'll finish up with this one.
okay.
The other thing that I have had a discussion with Chief Lopez on is being able to identify the types and quantities of the drugs that have been, drugs and weapons that have been confiscated throughout the course of their business. We're still working on that. We'll come up with something. We have to be kind of sensitive because some of them are still pending cases, but I just want the public and the council especially to have a good feel for the type of work, the things that are being done by our police department. So hopefully more to come on that. Okay, anything else for Chief Lopez? You're free to go, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Can
you,
we go
ladies.
back to item A or 9A real quick? Do you have any updates on National Night Out?
Nothing yet. I believe that the fire department that's being built is gonna be, if I'm not mistaken, ready in sometime in October. So,
Well, I think we are working on I got an email last week that there is a temporary plan for an opening or a count on National Night Out, basically kicking off there
mhm,
on the 5th of October. So there'll be more coming on that.
okay.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. And you're free to go if you choose to.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move back up to item 7. Consent agenda. Item A, approve the minutes from the August 26, 2021 regular city council meeting. Item B, approve the minutes from the August 31st, 2021 special city council meeting. Item C, approve July invoice number 1281 from Casan and Ortiz not to exceed $4,102.80.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fillinger and a second by Alderman Rapino to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, let's move on to item 9. Hey, hold on, back up.
Mhm.
I'm missing somebody. That's it. Mayor announcements and updates. I don't have any, so we will just cross that one off. Item number 10, financial report. The income and expenses will be reported by City Secretary Charlotte Rabe with possible discussion and or action. Go ahead, Ms. Rabe.
We have a beginning balance of $125,231.34. Checks and payments of $74,641.82. Deposits and credits of $90,814.52. Total cleared transactions, $16,172.70. Our ending balance is $141,404.04.
Thank you.
I move that we accept the financial report as reported.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Rapino and a second by Alderman Quickmer to accept the expense and income report as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item, I'm going to pull item 12 from the agenda. ACO Maldonado is out on vacation this week, so we do not have any, oh, sorry.
I have
Hold on.
me,
Hold on.
I'm recording too.
Animal control. Let's go to item A. Updates from Animal Control Advisory Committee Chair Jennifer Puente with possible discussion and interaction. Go ahead, ma'am.
Alrighty, so we have our next meeting on Monday. Sorry, the date, I think it's the 13th. Let me double check.
Check.
Yes.
Right,
That is what it
so
is.
Monday, the 13th, here at 6:30,
Okay,
and then Penny Paws will be here on the 18th.
on the 18th. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. And I will pull item B from the agenda as ACO Maldonado is on vacation this week. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 13, Public Works. Item A, updates and announcements from Park Advisory Committee Chair Tom Rapino with possible discussion and or action.
Oh, yes, we had our meeting last Tuesday, and we discussed several things. First and foremost, completing the work on the bench behind the backstop at the baseball field, and also maybe later in October doing that and getting the butterfly garden moving again, and completing some other projects. And that's about.
Well, I do have an update for you.
Okay.
The refrigeration unit was returned to federal surplus
I
today.
knew they were doing that.
Okay,
I
and
talked to
so
them
I
this
have had a
morning.
conversation with Ms. Sarmiento about getting with Ms. Schmidt to make sure that they get the correct one ordered.
Okay,
So,
well, that one is not available anymore.
we'll figure something out.
Right, I was going to call Lowe's today to see if they have one within our price range. And
Right. Priscilla can probably,
That unit wasn't any good.
it was not what we wanted. There was some, there was no
It was-
shelving on the
And
inside,
it was too small.
and it was smaller than the unit that we originally wanted.
The reason I mentioned it, although I'm not suggesting it, but I was going down Roosevelt,
Mhm.
that where McDonald's is.
Mhm.
Okay. On the left side, as you're going towards up there, there's a Mexican restaurant.
Mhm.
Then there's this kind of I've always thought of it as surplus furniture place.
Scratch
And I noticed he
dent
had a whole ton of those
Mm.
big silver. Might be something to look at just to get an idea of what you're looking for.
Well, my position on this is, let's buy something new that has a warranty that is probably more energy efficient than something that's used on the market. That's my thought.
I would go with that as 100%.
There are several commercial suppliers in town, rather than look for Home Depot, look for those.
Yeah, they
Right.
are.
Let's look for commercials.
Exactly.
I thought we were buying from Home Depot.
It was
It
from
was.
Home Depot, but
It was so popular, they don't have it.
No, they're looking.
yeah, we're
I'm
looking
so-
to get that something in there fairly quickly.
Probably what happened to my electric Cadillac order.
I would not buy an electric vehicle if they.
So the only other thing that we have here for the Park Advisory Committee is a reminder that the community yard sale is also on
Yeah.
Saturday,
September
September 18th.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to item 14, administration. Item 14A, discuss and or possible action on ordinance 2021-189, canceling the general election to be held on November 2nd, 2021. So we had our period of time where applications were being accepted. We did have 2 applications submitted on time, and that would be for position place 1, currently being held by Mayor Pro Tem Fillinger. Also filing for reelection would be Mr. Fillinger. And for Alderman Place 3, Alderman Rapino, who refiled to continue in that position. That would leave Alderman Place 5 vacant. And so we'll have to address that at a future meeting, but for now, that is pretty much where we're at with the applications. So we have ordinance 2021-189, canceling the general election to be held on November 2nd, 2021.
I move we adopt ordinance number 2021-189, canceling the general election.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fillinger and a second by Alderman Rapino, adopting ordinance 2021-189, canceling the general election that's to be held on November 2nd. All in favor, say aye.
Fine.
All opposed? Okay, that motion is unanimous. Item 14B, discuss and or possible action on creating an advisory committee for use of funds received under the American Rescue Plan Act. So I know I put this on the agenda and there's really not an ordinance or a resolution that we're going to consider this evening for it, but I did want to just kind of share my thoughts with the council members. We can certainly do something at a future meeting on this. If you recall, I previously told you that we have received a deposit. It's a little over $263,000 has already been deposited into an account. That was less than I expected, and I have been in contact with TDEM regarding that because I did not understand why we were originally told by Congressman Cuellar's office that it was over $1 million, and then somehow it's half of that. What I found was that the regulation, the Treasury guidelines say that a municipality cannot be funded more than 75% of their budget. And I instinctively went to our M&O budget. I forgot about our debt budget, which was more than our M&O. So I have submitted those corrections per TDM direction. And I just need to follow up and make sure that we should be expecting some additional funds. But I can't commit to any of that until we actually receive them.
There's no straight lines with anybody, is there?
No.
No.
And so you each have a copy of this flyer that was put together by Natalie Gonzalez, who is our,
I don't think Eric got one.
okay.
I didn't get one.
Oh, you didn't get one either? Well, here, I'll share with you.
I looked at,
Oh, okay, you already looked at it? Okay. And so this is just kind of a flyer to give you guys an idea of some of the things we can and can't do, how the program is going to work, and the timelines that were involved. We are what is called, and you'll hear this term a lot, NEU, and that means non-entitled unit. And that is a category that is for populations less than 50,000 people. So there's a lot of those here in Texas, a lot of them around the country. And those funds were received by the state of Texas. And then we applied for those funds through Texas Department of Emergency Management, TDEM. They're managing the entire process. So you can see here on the bottom of the first page, on the left, you see the American Rescue Plan, and on the right, you see CDBG. Those are separate programs altogether. They're not related in any way to these fundings. This is just a comparison, kind of how things are done related to the two. And then on the second page, there are some eligible activities and some sample project types. We're fortunate in one respect in that we don't have a emergency responders. We don't have hospitals. We don't have schools. Those type of things. That's where a lot of money went to keeping both the employees and the public or the students safe. So to continue in that vein, that money can be used with respect to that. In here, it talks about vaccination programs, medical expenses and training, isolation, quarantine. Those things fortunately do not apply to us. But one of the items that does is providing premium pay to essential workers. However, when we did have a premium pay in place, that was covered by a different fund. We had already been reimbursed for that. So unless there are, we have to declare another emergency and start limiting face-to-face and all of that again, probably will not be able to use the money for that. But, so at the very bottom, it says, provide government services impacted by the reduction in revenue. Provide debris removal services not performed due to decreased revenue. Reopen services such as libraries and recycling that were canceled or reduced. Modernization of cybersecurity, hardware, software protection of critical infrastructure. Health services, school or educational services, provisions for fire, police, and other public safety. What we can do is make investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So if we had water mains, we could replace those deteriorating mains. If we had storm sewer facilities, we could upgrade those with necessary road repair.
Isn't that an issue with us that we're looking to improve that one?
We do have that one area, and Ms. Gonzalez is checking to see if the match money for the grant that we applied for could be paid from these funds. Replace lead fixtures, joints, or pipes in a distribution system that does not apply to us, all these other things. Install fiber optic cable. So we can talk about that at a future meeting, but one of the things that we probably need to look at is being able to offer broadband services in some subsidized way to those individuals who truly cannot afford it. So we would have to come up with a means to do that. Also add broadband or upgrade existing broadband.
We need,
Yes, sir.
we need a social services director, but
Exactly. And so one of the things in the plan is that we can hire somebody to do this. And I highly recommend that we do that because we don't know what we don't know. And there are some very specific reporting requirements on here. And the last thing I want to see happen is
we spend money.
we spend money that
and
we,
they give it back.
exactly. The other thing is that what I really wanted to talk about related to this item on the agenda is putting together a committee. And I would recommend that we have at minimum 7 citizens. I would also, only because this is kind of broad, I want as much citizen input. There's probably things that are needed in the community that these funds may be used for that we don't know about. And so that's why I'm recommending, I know we typically go with 5, but I think 7 in this case, because we do want the community involvement in this. And then some discussion on how many elected representatives you would like also participating on that committee. So that's kind of where we're at with this right here. And whatever the council decides on this, we would direct the city attorney to prepare for future consideration. Yes, sir.
I see the bottom line here on the bottom blue is provision of police, fire, and other public safety services.
But those are services that were impacted by the reduction in revenue from last year. So in a let's say that in a bigger city, maybe they had to lay off some people because they didn't have enough money to pay them. That's what that's for.
We don't have enough people to lay off.
If we didn't have enough people to lay off, that's true. So what are your thoughts on, I'm going to put down here hire an administrator or coordinator, whatever we want to call it.
Well, I know we probably have people that qualify
Mhm.
for some of this money.
Mhm.
Uh, And the number one thing I think we need to look at is to find an administrator for this program.
I totally agree.
And basically let them deal with a citizens committee as to how are we going to reach the community.
So along those lines, I have been working with Miss Cordova, who is, she's on the Parks Committee and is also very instrumental in sharing a lot of information.
20 or 30 years in social service.
Yes, very connected, very aware, understands clearly how all of this works and from the reporting perspectives. And so she and I kind of had a little conversation about what is the best way to reach out to find out what is needed. So what we're thinking is that we need a mail out that needs to go to every household
Yeah.
with a form. And that's what she and I are working on, is what are the profile questions that need to be asked. We've come up with kind of a set list, and this is based on her experience in this realm. But we want to make sure that we're able to capture the information to be able to clearly define where the needs are. And so I'll continue to work with her to finalize that. The intent would then be to prepare a newsletter or a mailer to go out to everyone.
How do we generate the mailing list for that?
Oh, I have that all under control. Basically, what I do is I take the CPS franchise report.
Okay.
And I mean, I have to massage the data to strip out what we need. But yeah, that's what we typically use. Because the thought behind that is if they have electricity, somebody probably lives there. That's
Yeah.
kind of the thought process.
I think we have more than one person living without electricity.
Well, and I do know of one person that is indeed true, but I do know that one of the people involved in this is very well aware of that individual.
Okay.
And that's a good point. In the letter, we might want to make some recommendation along those lines.
Talk
That
to
if
your
you
neighbor.
know, yeah. And you know, one thing that it's such a simple thing. If you follow 4 points, everyone will be touched at some point. If I know my neighbor in front of me, behind me, and on both sides, that's my little circle there. And if they do that, it reaches out, and you kind of know who, you know, who has a need, who doesn't have a need. Don't go there.
I don't have a neighbor behind me.
Well, okay, 3 then.
So, and I do have 2 on each side and 2 across the street, so.
So when we talked about hiring an administrator, Ms. Gonzalez from Grant Works, you know, there are very limited discussions that we're allowed to have with them because this is a bid. This is very similar to us doing a bid for the administrative part of the grant that we submitted for. So she shares with me what she can, and
Yeah.
we don't discuss things that can't be discussed. But this could very well be something that we want to put out to bid for an administrator.
I would really like to see a community program where we reach out to every citizen. Just because some people don't talk, they don't interact,
Right,
but they have needs.
exactly.
we need to address.
Exactly.
You know, the silent majority kind of gets left behind.
Yeah.
Must be bilingual too. That's pretty
Yeah,
important.
the newsletter or the flyer and the form will be bilingual, because we don't know what language is spoken at each house. And so I think what I'll do is continue to work with Megan on finalizing the profile sheet, make sure that we've captured the right information. And then probably bring that back to a future council meeting, have everyone review it. And then we'll talk about the particulars on the logistics, the mailing, the who's going to gather the results, those type of things. Okay. Did we want to instruct the attorney to prepare a bid for an administrator? Or do you want to wait?
Do we? When you say a bid for an administrator, we just, I'm not familiar with how this would happen.
The same way that we did it for the grant, we had to put out, there was a whole process we went, oh, sorry, y'all didn't know that. I had to do all that. Well, no, you were there because we did go through and score some stuff. But that was for the actual project. Before that was the administrator piece. So we had to actually bid and select GrantWorks to do that. So that's what we're talking about here is bidding for an administrator. And there would be a number of, there's a site I go to and has a whole list of different organizations that do this type of work. And then we actually send out the information to them, inviting them to bid on it.
Would it be a full-time position or would it be
It would, so there's two things here. We're talking about an overall administrator who can help keep us out of trouble with the treasury. That's number one. And that's who that person would be. They're knowledgeable on how these government funds, how they can be spent and how the reporting needs to be done and keep us honest and open on that.
That
Are
could be
they
an
paid out of
agency,
that
I
money?
mean, because we could price ourselves out in the market if we got somebody that's really high powered.
The other is,
The administrator is a cost that's covered by the program.
yes, it is covered by, the funds can cover
I
that.
know, but we don't know how much we're gonna get.
We don't know. Well,
Well,
we know we're getting at least 500,000.
Okay.
I'm expecting double that.
so, yes, please have the attorney prepare a bid proposal.
Is that a motion?
or-
Isn't it a request for
It's a,
RF?
is it, Ms. Ortiz, can you help us out on this one?
Are we looking for an RFP or an RFQ?
It was, so I'm unfamiliar with this particular program and the administrator for this particular program, but I would think it would be someone, you're looking for the qualifications for an RFQ.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Okay,
Let me check back on the website that I was given where I had to go through, where GrantWorks is on there. I mean, all the different companies are on there. Let me bring that back at the next meeting. We'll have a fuller,
so
really no action on this one then at this time, just informational. But the other thing is, in addition to an administrator to deal with the treasury side of all of this, I think that we might want to also consider a local representative, a hired position that is going to be responsible for developing the programs, reaching out to the people, kind of being our local contact, doing that. So when we get to that point, we might consider a salary at that time, because that would be a full-time position.
Could there be
But not a lifelong.
sunset clause on the job or something like that, temporary position?
Well, yeah, because the funds have to be spent by 2024.
Right, so it wouldn't be ongoing.
No,
well, the,
as of now, no.
the program administrator that's overseeing the government money.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's gonna sunset in 2024.
Right.
Our community worker may be something we want to continue to fund,
After, yeah, depending on how it works out.
depending on how the program works out.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
City social programs.
Because, yeah, we can,
Yeah,
with a program director, there are a lot of services that are available to come into the community
that exists outside of this
that we're not able
utilizing.
to deal with. Because we're not social workers,
Exactly.
okay? You
And there
know,
are a lot of programs. Housing assistance is one. Utility assistance. I want to get into not a food bank per se, but a food pantry, but also Meals on Wheels. I mean, there's a whole number of
Energy.
things that are,
energy programs, when they
Exactly.
come out, they inspect your house and
Exactly.
Would be
And
helpful getting
if
somebody
you-
that she
there's
knows
means
that can,
testing
even on
involved.
part-time.
If you
Exactly.
qualify,
if
they
you
can
qualify,
and
they
that,
get
may
insulation,
replace
et
your
cetera.
broken
Yeah.
air conditioner. They may install, vapor barriers and
Right.
installation.
right,
uh, And quite honestly, we just don't have the expertise to try
don't.
to,
I agree.
try to deal with those
Yeah.
programs.
okay, so I will do some more background on this one and bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay,
Okay, item C, discussion or possible action on a resolution prohibiting the carrying of a handgun into the room in which city council and other city board, commission, or committee subject to chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code is meeting.
I think it's a stupid rule, but
Well,
I do. I mean, in today's world, who's going to abide by this coming into the room?
Yeah,
here?
that's true.
yeah,
But
I
still.
mean, it only takes 30 seconds to shoot all of us.
Is that this
again,
one here?
it's this last
I
one.
know it's a law. and
It
we
is a
don't have
law that
much-
was passed by the
Yeah, I
state.
know. We don't have much say, and I'm a rule of law guy, so
Yeah,
I didn't bring my gun tonight because
well, as I understand it, so I'm going to read through here. Section 1 says, a person is prohibited from entering with a firearm into the room or rooms in which any meeting of the city council or any other board or commission that is subject to chapter 551 Texas Government Code Open Meetings Act is held. So that's not changing for us here. What it allows, it's because of the open carry. They're free to come into the lobby with their gun. They cannot enter this room and they cannot enter the workspace, but they're free to come in there.
I know, but somebody bent on violence, they don't give a damn. They're gonna walk
I
in the room and.
totally agree.
We used to have law enforcement security.
Well, what I have done is I have had a conversation with Chief Lopez, and now that meetings are opened back up again, I've already expressed that I want an officer in the chambers with us at all times during the meetings. We used to do that. But because we've been doing virtual for so long, there really hasn't been a need to do that. So that will be happening going forward.
Are you gonna need two of them to escort you to your car?
No, no, we're good. I'm a big girl now. So there will be new signage that's going to be posted. Chief Lopez has already been working on getting the correct signage language and working with the city attorney as well on that. And so with that, we need a motion on this resolution, please.
I move we adopt resolution number 2021-138, a resolution of the city of Sandy Oaks prohibiting the carrying of a firearm into the room or rooms in which any meeting of the city council or any other city board, commission, or committee that is subject to chapter 551 Texas Government Code is meeting. That's a motion.
Thank you.
I second it.
Well, I heard you first. Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fillinger and a second by Alderwoman Puente to adopt resolution 2021-138, prohibiting the carrying of a handgun into the room in which city council or other city board, commission, or committee subject to chapter 551 Texas Government Code is meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
You're opposed? Oh, yes, you are. Okay. So we had four, and one
I will
against,
abide by it, but
just because, hey, I'm with you.
Principle.
Could they carry a rifle?
huh?
Could they carry a rifle?
No,
It's open
no, you
carry.
Can't carry any.
You can't bring anything in.
Not even concealed.
I'll bring a slingshot.
That's true, because
Bring
we
your
are
zip
only talking about
guns.
firearms.
I think
Okay,
you
so
used to
that,
make zip
that
guns,
vote
didn't you?
was 4-1 and the
Oh, is
motion,
it really?
Yeah.
the vote was 4-1 and the motion is approved. Okay, item 13D, or sorry, 14D, discuss and or possible action on job posting for animal control officer. So now that we have approved the budget, we've set the tax rate. We have had a discussion previously. I know I've talked about this a couple different times. ACO Maldonado began going to Police Academy in January, is expected to graduate in December. And so we knew that this transition was going to be happening. And what I would like to do is go ahead and post for filling that position. So post a job ad for that. So we can post it for, Ms. Ortiz, is there a minimum amount of time that we can post for the job position?
No, there's no minimum, just up to the council's discretion as long as there's an equal opportunity for people to apply.
Okay. So I think in the past, we have done 30 days. Oops, right here. Looking for my calendar. So our next our first meeting in October is not until the 14th. So if we did a 30-day, our options for doing that are 30 days or 14 days.
14.
You want to do 14?
Chief.
That would be, I think 14 is a bit challenging, to be quite honest.
I say we post for 30 days. Yeah, Wilson County News, the TML classifieds.
Which classifieds?
TML has.
Oh,
positions
TML, got it.
For
Okay,
city positions.
got it.
I don't know that. And posted, of course, on the city website.
Correct.
Uh,
So one thing that we need to do is be able to have a salary range that we're going to offer. My personal preference is,
well, okay,
well, my personal preference is $15. I don't think anybody should be working less than $15. That's just me.
but if we have an applicant that's already certified and is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So a
been in animal
range.
control,
Yeah, so we can do a salary range without identifying specifically what that position is going to pay. And that's what I need to hear from you guys is when we post it, do we have a salary range that we would want to include?
Tell us.
I told you my initial
You
thought,
said $15
Okay.
minimum.
minimum.
what is that
What's the
annual?
range?
15 is 28, I think. Hold on, let me figure that out real quick. I should know this in my previous job. 280
31?
times 15. 31, 2.
I would say 30 to 40,000.
I think that sounds,
And I believe the median animal control officer in Texas makes around 43.
we're a smaller,
We are a smaller city
well, but we're a smaller
and
facility too.
and a smaller facility.
Mhm.
So. But, you know, if we've got a guy that's already certified and has been doing this for 10 years and
Exactly.
has his own kennel truck, but
That's even better. We can
That'd be
wait.
nice.
Okay, so I think what, you want to make the motion?
okay, I make the motion that we advertise for 30 days in the Wilson County News, the TML classifieds,
Yeah, the city
posted on
website.
our website. Animal control officer, salary range $30,000 to $40,000.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fillinger and a second by Alderman Rapino to post a job ad for animal control officer for 30 days in the Wilson County News, or post the job in Wilson County News. TML also on the city website, and a salary range of 30 to 40,000.
And we can use the same verbiage that we used on our last posting.
Yes, okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion is unanimous. And we can move on to item number 15. And it is 8:09 and we are adjourned. And thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Stop the
You're welcome.
recording.